Well, ahead of the 2022 Matric Exams, concerns have been raised about this cohort who've had 2 years of disruptive learning due to COVID-19 and face the prospect of load shedding. Educational psychologists say that this group is the most deprived. They say that this group of matriculants need all the support they can get. Well, Professor Renata Schoeman is a member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists and joins us for a little more on this. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Are this year's cohort at a higher risk than their counterparts before, do you think?
Good evening, Peter. I definitely think they have additional challenges. Are there additional risks for mental health challenges? I'm not so sure. I think writing your matric exams is a stressful experience. And often it's also our attitude when we enter the exams that play a bigger role. We are aware that this group have additional challenges, but because of our awareness that there has been additional measures of support being put in place.
So talk us through traditionally what the pressures are, where they come from. I suspect that parents are more anxious than the students themselves sometimes.
I think definitely the parents and also the teachers. Remember, there's stress from all directions, and children are very, very aware that this is important and that it does determine maybe their admission to university, but also their job prospects in the future. So it might be self-imposed pressures, but also the whole matric year, everyone is just talking about the matric exams. In a way, it's no different than your grade 11 exams. It's just a culmination of all the learning that has been taken place over the previous 12 years. So in a way, you'll never be better prepared than what you are right now. And my message to matrics is there's 4 things. I think the first thing is to feel stressed is normal. Being a little bit stressed helps you actually to perform. If you are overconfident and completely relaxed, that might be dangerous. And then the 3 other things is what children and students often do wrong. They want to cram at the end, they want to pull all-nighters. And it's so important to have a decent night's sleep the evening before your exams, and rather sleep a bit more and be well rested so that you can think clearly the next day. The other thing is that you really can do for yourself to make this extended and protracted period of exam time easier is to make sure that you get enough fresh air every day, that you go for a daily walk or at least 30 minutes of exercise, which will reduce your anxiety with more or less a half and even improve your concentration with 20%. And the last thing that is very important is many matrics and students focus on, I need to pass, so I need to collect enough points to pass. Instead of going with the opposite attitude, I'm well prepared, I'm starting with 100%, and my only obligation tomorrow is to do as good as possible and to prevent losing marks. So it takes away that stress of I have to pass, and it creates a sense of confidence. I've nailed it, I've mastered it, I must just make as little as possible mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great, and when you say it and explain it like that, it is wonderful. But there's almost a tradition that we've built up over time that almost marks this moment as the most important in life. And it's only after you've done it, you look back and realize, actually, it was just a step. It wasn't the most important. How can we change it so that there isn't so much fatality attached to one set of exams in 1 year of your life?
Yeah, it is difficult because it is a natural milestone. And for many people, this is the end of their academic career. Not everyone goes on to further studies. So it's really a huge highlight. And I think it's something to celebrate as well. It's also an achievement in terms of your lifespan. It's almost marking your entry into adulthood. But yes, for us that's been there, done that and dusted, we know that 20 years later, no one ever asks you again about your results, and you seldom have to produce even your certificate. I think it's important to see learning as a progress and that your matric is not the end. So if you refuse to study further or can't have the opportunity to study further, even in your job one day, you will still accumulate knowledge. You might still do short courses or whatever. So knowledge is a journey, and it should not be just a destination of a matric certificate. I know, once again, it's easier said than done. I've been there. But I think what was the worst is the protractedness. It's one of the most extended exams. Usually exams is maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Matric exams is spaced over 4 to 6 weeks, depending on your subject choices. So it's more difficult actually just to maintain the motivation, to maintain the dedication of continue working every day. I also recommend the students that after a paper, really take a proper rest that afternoon, even if you write the next day, but make sure that you just unwind, regroup. And if you had a bad experience, it might feel like a bad experience, but you can't predict what the outcome will be until you actually see the marks. I think in future, it's very, very important also that maybe the conversation in society, the conversation in amongst educators and also among parents must be that studying or learning and knowledge and schooling is a continuous process, and the matric should not be seen as the beginning and the end all.
Yeah, and I guess with students, there's this natural tendency to do a post-mortem after every exam, and I suppose write it and let it go and just focus on the next one, right?
Absolutely, especially, as I said, if you had a bad experience, if you didn't complete the paper, or you maybe really made a boo-boo in one question, don't get fixated on it. Just start afresh tomorrow. Once again, start with the attitude that I've nailed it, I've 100%. Just try not to lose marks. It's amazing what that mental mind shift can do for your confidence, but also for your anxiety levels and the ability to think clearly in exams. The one other thing that's just a general tip, and also for someone that has a long academic career and also still work with students, not only with pupils, is that in the end, it's exam techniques. If you are well prepared, if you've been in class, if you showed up, if you've worked diligently and consistently, tomorrow or whenever you write a paper, is really about planning as well, the paper. Make sure that you're in time, that you don't arrive late, control what you can, don't be hungry, make sure that you have water, and also plan your marks. So don't get stuck on one question and spend the whole of your time allocated on this one question. Rather, make sure you have 30 minutes for this question, 30 minutes for that one, and move on. It's better to maybe get 60 or 65% on every question than what it is to have 100% on the one and not even tend to the other questions. That will assure much better marks as well.
All right. What about parents? What are the don'ts? What shouldn't they be doing at this time to help their kids get through?
Please don't tell your child, you must go and study, you must go and study, you must go and study. Because what they cram today or tomorrow is not actually going to make a difference. It's what they've been put in through the year. What you can tell them is it's time to switch off your lights. You can tell them get out and go for a walk. And the other thing, to make sure that they have good food. And there's some old wives' tales in this, but coming from a neuroscience perspective, there's some truth in it. Food like cabbage, food like raisins and eggs is actually crucial brain food that can actually boost them in this period.
All right. I guess the overriding thing and why we're talking is how to maintain good mental health state of being. What are the things to do? You've mentioned exercise, you've mentioned rest. What else can we do to be in a right frame?
So it's a general principle, what I call the seeds of self-care. And SEEDS, the acronym, stands for sleeping, exercise, educate, diet, socialize, and spirituality. So once again, it's making sure that you sleep enough and regularly. Please do not pull all-nighters. Please do not use substances to keep you awake. It's about that regular movement breaks. Don't try to study 3 hours continuously. Rather, study 35 minutes, take a 5-minute break, repeat times 3, and take a proper break, and also exercise 30 minutes every day, even if you don't think you have time. Education is great for your brain, stimulating your brain. So even if you think writing your exams is so stressful, it's one of the best things you can actually do for your brain, also to build your resilience. Then the diet, as I mentioned, try to eat healthy, fresh food and refrain from substances, whether it's caffeine, whether it's stimulants, whatever the case might be, except if you have a diagnosed condition where you do need to take treatment. The last two things, the socializing and the spirituality. Now we know that there's not now time for partying and everything until after your exams, but make sure that you do connect with your friends and try not to discuss the paper. Try not to say, what did you say? What did you say? That will just create anxiety for the next day. And it is often not serving you at all to have that post-mortem about the paper passed, but to have healthy connections, rather go and walk together, have a laugh, do something fun together over the weekend before you really need to knuckle down again. And lastly, spirituality. Don't forget that you really need to connect with your belief set, with whatever your religion you are, or if you're not religious, at least to be mindful and to meditate in the spirit, because it's so good for your brain also to recognize that there's some things that's under your control and some things that's really not under your control.
Prof, valuable advice. Thank you so much indeed for joining us this evening. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, and good luck to all the matrics.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's Professor Renata Schoeman speaking about some of the challenges that our matriculants are facing at this time. But there's so much you can do to stay in the right frame of mind and not to stress. Start with 100 and just make sure you don't give away marks in your test. And that shift, she says, will be quite significant in your approach.